You can learn a lot from tutorials and full-length courses, but the real expert tricks often show up in short, focused breakdowns like the ones you're about to see. So let's not waste time. Let's get straight into it. If you want to follow the artists featured here, all the links are in the description. We'll start with Jess Lewisman, who breaks down a painting brush animation created without any heavy simulations. Instead of brute force, they combine dynamic paint with lattice scaling to sell the effect of thick, spreading paint. You can almost feel the weight and viscosity in each stroke. It's a simple setup, but the result is incredibly convincing, and honestly, not a trick I would have thought of on my own. Next up is Matt T. Couch with this slide animation. If you had asked me to make something like this before, I would have gone straight to After Effects without hesitation. But after seeing this breakdown, Blender actually makes more sense. You're not juggling endless layers or track mats. If you want something on top, you just move it on top. If you want something out of focus, you adjust the camera's depth of field. Sure, you can do similar things in After Effects, but here the logic feels more direct and more intuitive. Here at Blender Everything, we don't just praise Blender because it's what we know. If there's a better workflow, even one that doesn't involve Blender at all, we'll share it. A perfect example is this animation by Michael Nowak. Could you recreate something like this in Blender? Probably. But should you? I don't think so. Follow his work and it becomes very clear why choosing the right tool for the job can make a massive difference. It also helps to truly understand what you're doing because there aren't many animators who can achieve motion this smooth. I've always stuck by this principle: use the right program for the right job. That said, Vreehead completely breaks that rule. To him, that idea isn't wisdom, it's nonsense. He's out here creating 3D characters using splines in a 2D program, and the level of confidence and control required to pull that off just blows my mind. Being so sure of your craft that your default approach is to do the opposite of what everyone else would, that's on a completely different level. Going back to 3D, take a look at this gorgeous ad by Shareed Housek. It's a clean, well-executed showcase of a product and, more importantly, a clear explanation of how it works. Nothing feels overdone. The result doesn't come from fancy simulations or abstract particle effects. Instead, it relies on simple, well-executed techniques. Smooth camera movements, solid framing, and well-detailed models. I honestly wouldn't believe this isn't an actual photograph if it weren't for the clay render. You can tell the characters are 3D scans, and that's exactly what makes this so effective. It really drives home how powerful scanned assets can be. If you have a solid library of scanned characters, you can push the realism of your renders dramatically without adding much complexity or increasing render times. And if you're looking to populate scenes at scale, procedural crowd tools paired with large scan libraries give you the best of both worlds: believable realism and efficient workflows, plus the flexibility of crowd simulation on top. Next up is a sleek beverage ad by Tosh Binary CGI. They lean on a mix of techniques, particles, fluid simulations, and a few clever transitions to sell the energy and freshness of the product. One standout moment is the lime morphing into liquid, which they handle in Houdini. That said, I do think Blender could pull off a similar result with the right setup. When I first saw this, I genuinely thought the hand and the background were real. It turns out everything is fully 3D, which becomes obvious once you see the viewport render. This piece is by Jess Lewisman, and it's a great example of how presentation can completely sell an effect. They're showing the transformation from one shoe to another, but what really makes it work is the handheld camera feel. That subtle, imperfect motion tricks your brain into thinking there was real footage involved, almost as if some motion tracking was used. If you're aiming for a true 70s or 80s look, this is the level of detail you need to pay attention to. The style isn't coming from shaders and materials alone. You can clearly see extra, slightly flickering geometry layered into the models and animation to recreate that hand-drawn feel. The small inconsistencies, the subtle jitter, the way forms jump slightly from one frame to the next. That imperfection is what sells it. It breaks the clean, mathematically perfect motion of modern 3D and replaces it with something that feels organic and human. You don't need to model every single detail, and Blender Guppy shows this perfectly here while making a sack-like form. If you tried to sculpt all those wrinkles by hand, you could probably get them to look this good, but it would cost you a lot of time. Instead, this approach gets you believable detail fast, overcommitting to heavy sculpting. It's a neat technique for anyone who wants strong surface detail quickly and efficiently, especially when the detail doesn't need to hold up to extreme close-ups. Don't let this demo fool you. Modeling is not this easy or this fast. Demos like this have a way of pulling you into 3D, making it look effortless, only for you to realize later that you can spend days just working on the chassis of a car. That said, when it finally comes together, there's nothing quite as satisfying. The struggle is part of the process, and the payoff comes from pushing through those slow technical stages and seeing a complex model take shape. That moment of completion is what keeps most of us coming back. Just like Carrie Slater from the previous video, Motion Designers Pro also sneak in a standout render they clearly want you to notice. Great lighting, strong compositing, everything is dialed in and it all looks fantastic. Watch this demo by Hanhatzel, where he breaks down different optimization techniques for increasing FPS when working with collider meshes. He compares several approaches, using the original mesh, concave colliders, convex colliders, and even simple cube-based proxies that follow the shape of the object, almost like voxelized colliders at different resolutions. What's interesting is that many of these methods achieve nearly the same practical result, but at drastically different computational costs. It's a clear reminder that the default approach is not always the best one, and why these kinds of breakdowns are so valuable. They force you to rethink assumptions and choose solutions based on performance, not habit. What a magnificent render by RJ Patamide. This could easily pass as a frame from a movie. And what's impressive is how restrained it is. Great lighting and a well-made model do most of the heavy lifting. There do seem to be some volumetric clouds in the scene, but beyond that, it's surprisingly minimal. A solid model, a good HDRI, and careful lighting choices. No unnecessary effects, no overcomplication, just strong fundamentals executed well. Next up is Vox Day, with a great breakdown of a ground destruction scene in Houdini. This is easily one of the best Houdini training channels on YouTube. The demo is especially strong because it shows the same setup in multiple ways: a raw viewport render, a realistic render, and an anime-style render. What makes this even better is that it's planned as a free course. And don't be put off just because it's Houdini. Those skills transfer surprisingly well into Blender. The core ideas around simulations, attributes, and procedural thinking carry over almost directly. If you want a smoother entry point, the Houdini for Blender Artists course is also a solid way to get up to speed with the basics. If you thought 3D was complicated, take a look at this After Effects breakdown by Cybert. If you're aiming to make those viral TikTok-style edits of movies and celebrities, this is exactly the space you want to be in. What makes his content valuable is the clarity of the breakdowns. He shows you what the workflow actually looks like, where to start, how things are layered, and how the edit comes together. It gives you a realistic picture of the process instead of just the polished final result, which is perfect if you're trying to understand how these edits are really made. And that's it. Before you go, just a quick note. Texture Folders, my add-on for managing textures inside Blender, is now on version 3. It now includes decals, masks, and a few other quality of life improvements that make working with textures much faster. You can grab it easily. Links are all in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.